now take leaders' questions under Standing Order 27. I call on Deputy Niall Collins.
Thanks very much, Lasco and Corla. Taoiseach, before the election, your party promised that there would not be any cuts to social welfare with Labour in government. After your first budget, as the detail emerged in the days and weeks after the announcement, we now know that the exact opposite is the case. The disadvantaged were targeted like never before. The welfare cuts agreed by your government were cruel. Proposed disability cuts were particularly cruel. If introduced, there would be more than a 50% reduction in some allowances. You then paused this budget measure amid opposition and clamour from within this chamber and from disability groups and campaigners outside. People with disabilities are now left in limbo. They do not know for certain where they stand with your government, or indeed if they have any recognition at all. Taoiseach, the proposed cuts are deeply unfair. Young people with disabilities look forward to having an income of their own. They look forward to the independence it gives and to the certainty and quality of life that it brings. Taoiseach, cutting the disability allowance for young people up to the age of 24 was wrong, and it should be reversed. You admitted the mistake you made in relation to DEIS schools, and it's now time to do the same with this proposal.
Thank you, David.
There were tough budgets announced in 2008, 2009 and 2010, but at least they were fair and did not target those most in need. And that was independently confirmed by the ESRI, and they also said that the 2011 budget statement was exceptionally regressive. So, Taoiseach, I have two questions. Do you still stand over your regressive budget statement of 2011? And can you confirm that the proposed cuts to disability allowances will not now proceed?
Taoiseach.
Deputy Collins is right. The government did commit that there would not be a reduction in basic social welfare payments, and the government honoured that commitment in the budget. There were no cuts in the basic rates of social welfare payments. This government is absolutely committed to defending the position of people with disabilities, to defending their families, to working with them, to supporting them. That work is underpinned by the work which is being carried out by Minister Kathleen Lynch, by the Minister for Health, the Minister for Social Protection. There is a commitment in this government to defending people with disabilities and to ensuring that their needs are fully met.
Deputy Collins, 1 minute supplementary question.
Taoiseach, you haven't addressed the question that I posed. You paused that budget measure, and people who suffer from disabilities and who are in receipt of the disability allowance are entitled to respect, and also they're entitled to certainty in terms of the payment that they can expect to receive from government to support them in their day-to-day life. And their day-to-day lives are full of challenges. Now, you did pause that particular budget measure, and you appointed the chairperson of the Commission on Social Welfare and Taxation to carry out a review. So where stands it? And aren't these people entitled to know exactly where they stand with your government? And when will this uncertainty, because you're trying to rewrite and represent some of your budget measures, where will, in particular, these people with disabilities, where do they stand, and when will they know exactly the position in relation to the budget announcement which proposed to cut their disability allowance payment?
Thank you, Deputy. And Taoiseach, 1 minute, final reply.
Yeah, the change in relation to the disability allowance was, as Deputy Collins has paused, and that position has not changed. And you know, I find it quite remarkable that on a day when the government has progress to report in relation to the promissory note, on a day when we've just seen the publication of the report of the Mahon Tribunal, the only issue that Fianna Fáil can find to ask a leader's question on is an issue which is already an issue.
Order, please.
Is an issue. is an issue. Is an issue. Yes.
Deputy Dooley. Deputy Dooley. Deputy.
Yeah. It's an issue. It's an issue.
Could I have one voice?
An issue that has already been dealt with by government.
Now, call Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald. Please, Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald, you've 2 minutes to it. Please, please, order, please. Could we have some order? I've called Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald. Please, Deputy. Please.
Well, Taoiseach, you failed to answer the first question, so let's see how I get on.
Please.
Taoiseach, the last night's announcement by the Minister for Finance on the promissory note during a Sinn Féin private members' debate on the ESM blackmail clause begs more questions than it answers.
Please.
As you know, Sinn Féin has been raising this issue for more than a year and calling for a write-down of this odious debt. If a deal is agreed today with the ECB, which results in a write-down of that debt, we in Sinn Féin will be the first to welcome it. But before any of us...
Please, deputies. Deputies, please.
But before any of us pass judgment on the deal, there are a number of questions that must be asked. Will this deal reduce the state's liabilities to Anglo-Irish Bank? Will the debt heaped on the shoulders of the citizens by Fianna Fáil in 2010 and honoured by your government to the tune of £3.1 billion last year be reduced? Will the deal announced by Minister Noonan last night have any effect on the state's debt to GDP ratio and in turn any impact on our return to the bond markets next year? Will the deal have any impact on this year's deficit, or indeed the government's plans to suck £3.8 billion from the economy in 2012?
No point of order, Leader's question. No, please. Sorry.
And a further £2.25 billion from the economy in 2013.
Thank you, Deputy MacDonald. Your time is now up. Can I also say
sorry,
your time is almost...
No, excuse me.
No.
I have been consistently barracked
please
to
finish.
my right.
Please finish your question.
I wish to conclude
my
please.
Remarks. A question, please. Please conclude.
So the question is whether or not any deal agreed in Frankfurt will fundamentally alter the nature of this debt, changing it from a toxic banking debt to a sovereign bond and sovereign debt, and all the consequences that brings. So the question today, Taoiseach, is whether the government has actually secured a deal that reduces the debt, that represents a write-down of that debt to Anglo-Irish Bank, and if in so doing it reduces our deficit and it reduces the extent of cutbacks and hardship experienced by millions of people across the state.
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, just to correct Deputy MacDonald, this debt did not arise just in 2010. It arose in 2008 when your party, Deputy MacDonald, voted for the bank bailout. That is why.
Please. Come on,
that is why.
Order, please.
That is why we're in the fix. That's why we're in the fix that we're in, and why this government is now trying to fix that. The current government was landed with the very expensive method of financing Anglo-Irish Bank and Irish Nationwide via promissory notes by the disastrous banking policies of the previous government. Since taking office, since taking office, this government has been working hard to lessen to the taxpayer the cost of rescuing the banks. It has involved the long process of building up trust and confidence with our partners in Europe. The Government always committed that we would inform the Dáil about any significant development concerning the payment of the promissory note at the end of this month. The Minister for Finance brought the Dáil up to date on that issue last night. In recent months, the Government has been involved in technical discussions on reducing the burden of debt associated with the recapitalisation of the banks. In particular, our focus has been on the promissory note arrangement that was put in place to fund the Irish Bank Resolution Corporation, formerly Anglo-Irish Bank and Irish Nationwide. This is an arrangement which requires the state to make cash payments of €3.06 billion each year to IBRC. There have been some developments on this issue in recent days. The discussions with the European authorities on the general issue continue, but we are now negotiating with the EU authorities on the basis that the €3.06 billion cash instalment due from the Minister to the IBRC on the 31st of March 2012 under the terms of the IBRC promissory note could be settled by the delivery of a long-term Irish Government bond. The details of the arrangement have still to be worked out, but I must reiterate the Minister's statement last night that set out that discussions are ongoing. However, the obvious use of a government bond would have a positive cash flow benefit for the state, as it will free up €3.06 billion of cash that was required to pay the promissory notes.
Thank you, Taoiseach. A supplementary question, Deputy, one minute.
Thank you, Lascar and Corla. Well, it seems from your response, Taoiseach, that uniquely you have been consistent on this matter. The Taoiseach repeatedly told this House that you would not seek a write-down of debt. And you've been true, you've been as good as your word. I find that very disappointing, but not all that surprising. So can you clarify for us at least this? Does the state now have 3.1 or 3.6 billion additional resources to ease the burden on citizens and to row back on your cutbacks and some of your tax hikes? Can you answer that question for the people? And furthermore, Taoiseach, can I say that in your presentation of this matter, can you move from spin and rhetoric and actually be straight with people? What you've done, rather than resolve the debt issue, what you have done is kicked the can further down the road.
Thank you, Deputy.
And the debt will be left intact for future generations and for future governments to meet.
Thank you, Deputy.
You've said that we'll have an additional $3 billion. Where will you invest that $3 billion? Which of the cutbacks will you row back on? What relief will the citizens have from this deal?
Taoiseach.
Yes, you're right, Deputy MacDonald. I have been consistent on this issue, and the Taoiseach has been consistent on this issue, and the Government has been consistent on this issue. We have said, since the time the Government was formed, that we would proceed to renegotiate the terms of the bailout arrangements, which we believe are too onerous on the Irish taxpayer. We've been consistent in that, and the Minister for Finance brought the House up to date on the progress that has been made on that to now. You have also been consistent, Deputy MacDonald. You've been consistently wrong. You were wrong, first of all, when you assumed that we wouldn't succeed in negotiating a change in those arrangements. You were wrong. When you assumed that we wouldn't secure a reduction in the interest rate. And you were wrong, as I recall it, when you assumed that we wouldn't secure agreement to, for example, reverse the change in the minimum wage. Your problem, Deputy MacDonald, is that you're just... No, your problem, Deputy MacDonald. Your problem, Deputy... Your problem...
Please, order. Order.
Your problem, Deputy MacDonald, is that you are disappointed that this government is succeeding. And it would do. We are succeeding. We are succeeding. We are succeeding. And if we succeed, and I repeat the point, if we succeed, if we succeed, and again I reiterate that these discussions are not yet concluded, if we succeed in getting an agreement for the replacement of the promissory note by a long-term government bond, that will have enormous benefit to the Irish taxpayer, to this country, and will give this country a great deal of space.
Thank you,
Deputy Doherty.
Please. Thank you. Please. Can we have some order, please? Deputy. Sorry, just Taoiseach to conclude.
Deputy Doherty, for a man who got it so outrageously wrong in September 2008, a period of repentant silence would be due from you, the Irish taxpayer.
I now call next order, Deputy Joe Higgins. Sorry, could we have order, please? Could we have order, please, for the member speaking? Sorry, deputies. I call Deputy Joe Higgins, please. Deputy Durkin, please. Deputy Joe Higgins.
Taoiseach, can I bring you back to what you said yesterday here on the household charge when you asserted people want to pay, and members of your government have been out all week saying that the fact that 83% of householders had not registered and paid as of last night are all waiting till the last minute. Can I put it to you that you are delusional about what is going on here? On the Marie Antoinette scale of delusion, as a matter of fact, that you are completely out of touch. Can I put it to you, Taoiseach, that the herd of elephants that is stampeding from Malin to Mizenhead, completely unseen by your government, is that there is a massive revolt among the ordinary, decent, compliant, tax-paying majority in this society against a new tier of taxation that they understand will quickly go towards €1,000 and beyond. And secondly, that it is a massive revolt against the disastrous policy of austerity of you and the previous government, which is creating havoc in our society, fleecing ordinary people to bail out the speculators. Now, can I put it to you that the New York Times, in a major article on the household tax yesterday, got it far more right than the government and indeed many in the Irish media, when they identified correctly the wellspring of anger on this issue, driving a massive national boycott. Can I ask you to read that? Taoiseach, do you understand that the Mahon report today will remind our people about the enormous greed and corruption by a tiny elite who plundered our society and plunged society into the current disastrous
Deputy,
crash,
you're over time, Deputy, now.
making the majority pay for their greed with disastrous consequences for our society, that this will intensify the boycott against the household tax.
Thank you, Deputy.
At least the Minister for the Environment was coming to terms with the reality yesterday when he was challenged on RTE's drive time, and it was put to him.
Order. Question, please.
Put to him that nobody knew about this household charge, and he responded, there are posters up protesting against the household tax in every town in Ireland, so everybody knows about the household tax.
Thank you, Deputy. I call on the Taoiseach.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. Sorry,
fact,
there's no injury time, Deputy.
Yeah.
There's no injury time.
Yeah. No. But
so I call on the Taoiseach. You have to resume your seat. You have to resume your seat. I know, Deputy. You've gone way over time now. Please conclude. Final question.
They're heckling him. They're not letting him speak. Count Corley, we have to bring reality.
Final question.
We have to bring reality to the chamber here, okay? Now,
Deputy, there's time limits, Deputy, on this leader's question.
Taoiseach, can I ask you therefore? Taoiseach, can I ask you therefore, in view of this, and in view of what you just said, that your arrangement in the promissory note will bring tremendous benefits to Irish taxpayers, will one of the benefits be that you will now withdraw this regressive household tax and listen to what people are saying?
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Well, I have just, prior to coming into the chamber, received a copy of the report of the Mahon Tribunal. And obviously I haven't had the opportunity of reading it yet. But I think we will all obviously have an opportunity of reading and considering the report of the Mahon Tribunal during the course of today and over the weekend, and I would hope that we would be able to make arrangements, I'll ask Corla through the whips, to have a comprehensive debate on the Mahon Tribunal during the course of next week. I think that Deputy Higgins is right that the contents of the Mahon Tribunal and what it was asked to investigate is not unrelated to the difficulties that this country faces today. The issue which the government is dealing with right now, which is to renegotiate the terms of the bailout for Anglo-Irish Bank, is in a sense dealing with the mess that was created in dealing with a bank which was the piggy bank for the property bubble that brought this country's economy to its knees. And as we know from the evidence that we heard at the Mahon Tribunal, some of that property bubble was in turn, unfortunately, connected to corrupt acts that were performed by some individuals. So I think that it is related to the difficulties, the firstly, that the government has in managing our way out of the mess that we inherited from our predecessors, and that includes dealing with the issue of the promissory note, this requirement that we have to pay, that the Irish taxpayer was left with a situation that we would have to pay over €3 billion in cash every year for 10 years in order to bail out that bank. We have made progress. We have made progress on that, which the Minister for Finance announced yesterday. I think we will have the opportunity next week, and I would like, if arrangements could be made with the whips, that we would have an opportunity next week of having a comprehensive debate here in the Dáil on the findings of the Mahon Tribunal when members have had an opportunity of considering.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Higgins, 1 minute supplementary, please.
Taoiseach, while I acknowledge that you just said you realise there is a link between the corruption and the reckless speculation that undoubtedly will be outlined in the Mahon report, and the crash of our society, and the austerity that you continue to impose. But you should have broken the link. You should not have put the massive burden for this corruption and this profiteering and speculation on the backs of ordinary people. They are rejecting it. That is why up and down this country there is a huge revolt against the household tax. It's the symbol of people's opposition. And you know, it's amazing that the backbenchers of Fine Gael and Labour, the Labour elves in particular, have not done their job in making you aware of the extent of the anger that is out there. That's the reality of the situation.
Thank you, Deputy.
By the end of this month, in 9 days' time, you will have a majority of people in revolt against the austerity policy and the household tax policy of your government. Now, can I ask you to recognise reality and to withdraw this tax, this burden from our people, and perhaps start again? And can I ask you to stop, encouraging people like the Postmasters Union to rush out and become boycott breakers for this regressive tax?
Thank you, Deputy.
Can I ask you finally? Can I ask you finally?
Conclude, please, Deputy. Order, please.
Can I ask you finally, Taoiseach, will you come to the National Stadium in Dublin this Saturday to hear thousands of people come together and see them in a major national protest rally against your regressive tax, and bring some of the Labour backbenchers with you so they get a dose of reality and listen to ordinary people for a change? Please, order, please.
If we were if we were to follow your advice, Deputy Higgins, this country would run out of money. And that's not an idle comment, because the only time that your people ran anything was the City of Liverpool in the 1980s. And the City of Liverpool ran out of money. And your people ended up, on a Friday afternoon when there was no money to pay the wages to the gravediggers and the road workers and the other people working for the city, your people ended up having to hire taxis to send around their P45s to the employees of the City of Liverpool. And here's another link for you, Deputy Higgins. Here's another link for you. Here's another link for you, which is not unconnected. Which is here's another link. Here's another link for you, which is not unconnected to the Mahon Tribunal. Your people in Liverpool were subsequently found to be corrupt too. Now, Deputy Higgins, your juvenile economics.
No interruptions.
Your juvenile economics, Deputy Higgins.
Just resume your seat. No, resume your seat.
Your juvenile economics.
You have to resume your seat. No, there's no. Chair's on his feet. There's no interruptions during or no points of order during leaders' questions. Resume your seat. No. Deputy Higgins.
Deputy Higgins, you're juvenile. I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
Your juvenile economics will not get this country out of the difficulty that it's in. The only way, yes, indeed they are. The way in which this country is going to get out of the mess.
Question, Deputy.
The only way that this country is going to get out of the mess that we inherited from Fianna Fáil is through the prudent management of our economy, the approach that we're taking. For example, the issue of dealing with the promissory note in the way in which we're dealt with, which many of you on the opposite, which many of you on the opposition benches said wasn't possible. The approach that we took to the issue of the interest rate, the successful way that we have renegotiated the terms of the programme. Getting out of the economic hole that this country found itself in is not easy for the government, it's not easy for the people of this country, and it is not helped by the kind of facile, instant, abracadabra kind of solutions that Deputy Higgins seems to think will work.
Thank you, Tánaiste. That concludes.